Hey guys, let's talk a little Lions here. Publisher of all Lions, SI.com, on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. John, Doc, Maakaron. Doc, how you doing, my friend? Thanks so much for the time.
Hey, Doc.
Hey guys, great to talk to you. Lots to talk about with the Pistons and Lions, man. Exciting night.
Before we get to the Lions, just your take on the Pistons, where they are as a franchise, and tonight's huge night, for lack of a better way to say
And who
it.
you betting on?
Yeah, I'm kind of the guy that just says, you know what, I'm bracing myself for the disappointment. Obviously, seeing the Red Wings not getting their opportunity to move up in the draft, like you guys were talking earlier, thinking maybe San Antonio might get it. But it would be great if the Pistons landed Victor Wembanyama. But like a true skeptic, my vision also kind of the thoughts that permeate my head would be, of course, all this hype would surround Victor Wembanyama, and he turns out to be the next Sam Bowie, and the guy after him turns out to be the next all-world NBA player. So I'm just hoping, one, the Pistons do indeed land the number one pick, and two, you have to hope that this player at 7'5" remains healthy enough to develop to become this all-world LeBron player. When was the last time a LeBron, Michael Jordan-esque player landed with the Pistons? That'd be amazing.
That would be amazing. Hey, Doc, let's talk a little Lions now. Rookie minicamp out in Allen Park over the last weekend. Initial takeaways from that, if anything, were what?
Yeah, obviously, it's the first opportunity these rookies have to join the Lions. They're in meetings, and we had an opportunity before the players took the field to talk to assistant general manager Ray Agnew, and he told us that basically what the coaching staff was looking for was how good their movement was, how quick they could acclimate to the NFL system, and basically just to assess how smart these players were. And boy, obviously after the disappointment of not being able to see Jahmyr Gibbs, I was just very impressed with tight end Sam Laporta and linebacker Jack Campbell. Both guys from Iowa stood out as guys that are going to be foundational pieces for this football team for a long time to come.
Two guys that start day one, Laporta and Campbell?
Absolutely. You can count on them to start day one. First of all, I tend to lean on and focus more on defense. So I definitely watched up close Jack Campbell, the fluidity, the speed, the sheer size of this linebacker. You recognize in watching his film at Iowa, one of the top cover linebackers in all of college sports. And now you see how quick he can move. They had him at the Mike linebacker position right away in a leadership role. You think, and I probably am going to presume this is going to be in a year or two, the green dot linebacker who will be, in essence, the quarterback of that defense. I do see his temperament, the shades of Chris Spielman, just being this hard-nosed, talented linebacker who's all business. And I just was so impressed with his movement and his sheer understanding already of what his responsibilities are.
We talk a lot about the Iowa guys. What about the Alabama guys? Obviously, round one, Jahmyr Gibbs. We could talk about him, and then Brian Branch just seems to be a player that so many people cannot believe he was there for them in the second round. I'm sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, both were not available for the portion of the practice that the media got to see. But you recognize that these two pieces from Alabama are going to be counted on very heavily and early. I think with Branch, it's going to take a little bit more time. Obviously, he's got a tougher hill to climb with that defensive backs room, but I think early on, you'll see him contribute heavily on special teams. But what the upside of a player like that is very versatile. You can put him in the slot, you can put him at safety, and he'll have success. Everybody, and like myself, a little disappointed we couldn't get our first glimpse of Jahmyr Gibbs, but when you see what he's capable of and you see the potential with Gibbs, Laporta, St. Brown in this offense, and when Jamison Williams returns, you have so many great integral parts on this offense. These opposing defenses are going to be so challenged trying to stop this Detroit Lions team, especially in the second half when Jamison returns. Look out. I think Jahmyr Gibbs really has the potential day one to be a guy that can be really a nice piece in this offense.
I hope you're right, Doc. We're all praying for that. They signed about 16 undrafted free agents. Did any of them stick out to you? And we can put the list up for you. And a couple were added yesterday. Dylan Drummond from EMU, and they signed a former XFL kicker and John Parker Romo. So it looks like, what's his name? Our kicker is going to have Badgley, the money badger, is going to have a little competition.
Yeah, I thought exactly right. The one who stood out, obviously, was Dylan Drummond. Showcased a ton of speed out there from Eastern Michigan during a special teams drill. Just was really blown by the opposing defenders, trying to put a move on the others, trying to stop him. But at the same time, definitely the kicker competition, when you see what Romo was able to do in the XFL, I think it'll be a healthy competition. But the one who stood out to me, obviously, because there was only one quarterback and one running back at the portion that we got to watch, was Mohamed Ibrahim. I just think that he showcased a lot of what the front office is going to like. A power runner, can be somebody that I think has a chance to, throughout training camp, make a name for himself. I think that he's got, obviously some skills that the Lions are going to like in terms of being a power back. Definitely was being showcased heavily. Adrian Martinez tossed him several passes, and you realize, okay, this is a young developing player that the Lions may want to develop, is going to be a nice competition with Craig Reynolds during training camp. So those were the three that caught my attention out there on Saturday.
Now, you mentioned Adrian Martinez. We know Hendon Hooker basically is taking a red shirt for this year, but what's your take on the backup quarterback going forward? Do you think they reach in to the free agent pool, pull a Teddy Bridgewater out, or do you think they're going to ride with Nate Sudfeld and maybe Adrian Martinez?
Yeah, that's such a tough question because by all accounts, from what you're hearing from the Lions, they really do like and respect what Nate Sudfeld brings to the table. That's why, indeed, he was brought back. Yes, Hendon Hooker, I don't think sees the field at all in 2023, and it will be a redshirt year for him to get acclimated to the NFL lifestyle and getting caught up to Ben Johnson's offensive scheme. But you look at it and you say, okay, this is a football team that if something does happen to Jared Goff, it would cause quite the concern. But the silver lining is, if Nate Sudfeld, despite the fact he doesn't have a lot of in-game experience, you still have the makings of an offense that I think you can get by for a couple weeks. If it's a long-term injury to Jared Goff, I just think that the Lions are going to just unfortunately have to struggle and suffer. But if it's just a couple games, you look at the offensive weapons with that offensive line and a revamped defense, you can get by with a Nate Sudfeld. I just don't think, because if Teddy Bridgewater by now did not take their significant offer, I think he looks at that landscape and says, obviously Hendon Hooker is going to be the developmental quarterback. I think he might look for another opportunity. Adrian Martinez, still very raw. I think he'll spend the year on the practice squad with Detroit. But I just think that and it's tough to accept, I know, because we always look for better, but if something happens to Goff, I think the backup quarterback this year all throughout will be Nate Sudfeld.
Oh, boy.
Talking to Doc Maakaron, publisher of All Lions, SI.com, on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Doc, let me ask you about your initial impression of the schedule when it came out on Thursday. I haven't had a chance to talk to you about that. We did our game by game. I had 13 wins. I think Maz had 11.
Yeah. But I was pushing for 12.
Right. What about you? How do you see the schedule this year?
Yeah, I'm right in the middle. I had it at All Lions right away when the schedule was posted. I have them at 12-5. I absolutely love this schedule for the Detroit Lions. Yeah, it's going to be tough that first game against Kansas City, but all the eyes of the NFL world are going to be on the Detroit Lions and the Chiefs that Thursday. And you just can't discount how important that is for the Lions brand to have the entire NFL media world be there the opening night, the only game that will be aired that Thursday to open the season. I look at that schedule and I look at the Lions roster, their revamped defense. Not a lot of games on there where you say the Lions won't be favored in. So I'm excited. I see basically a schedule that allows the Lions to get plenty of rest, not too many losses based on the schedule, maybe a couple where they're coming off of short rest. But after the best part for a reporter, after the second half of the year, they don't travel too much to cold weather cities. So it's a schedule that really lines up for the Detroit Lions. And by the time they get things rolling with Jamison Williams, they're going to be a football team that's going to be reckoned with. And I do see 11 wins being the minimum that this football team can accomplish because of the upgraded talent, what they have going on with that offense. And I think it's a hungry football team that still has that bitter taste in their mouth from not making the playoffs. They're bitter and they're hungry, and they know they didn't prove nothing last year.
What's your take on the primetime schedule, the primetime games? The Lions get 5, including Thanksgiving. The Packers get 6. I mean, what is the NFL seeing that maybe we're not seeing?
Yeah, well, obviously the Packers, they have a passionate fan base that still supports everything that they do. So when you look at it, it's not based on the talent on the field. Obviously, when you lose Aaron Rodgers, it's the fact it's a hungry football market that doesn't have too much outside of the Green Bay Packers. But with the Lions, I think it's a great opportunity to showcase what this rebuild is all about. And we had an inkling that they were going to get more than just the one when the schedule was being talked about. And you look at everything going on, and the football team deserves it. Based on last year going 8-2 down the stretch, you see a lot of star potential. And I said this too in a recent podcast with Detroit Sports Podcast. I said, what does the NFL look for? Entertainment and ratings. I think that when you see the hype surrounding the Detroit Lions and you see an offense that can score points, why wouldn't you put them in as many featured games as possible? The team is entertaining. So many times before, it was just a boring football team. Last year, it was an exciting second half of the year filled with good plays, deep plays, and now you have some stars that you can market across the NFL. So absolutely well-deserved for the Lions to be featured because they do have some talent that needs to be showcased in primetime.
Hey, Doc, there's a player with the New York Jets. Everyone is licking their chops at trying to make a run at Quinnen Williams. He stepped out on his Twitter, and he kind of took off the New York Jets out of his Twitter handle. So Quinnen Williams is pissed. He wants $30 to $60 million. This guy does.
Give it to him. Pay the man.
He wants $25 to $30 million a year to play football.
He earned it.
I don't know if the Jets could afford him now that they have Aaron Rodgers there and all these wide receivers and players that Aaron Rodgers wanted them to sign. I doubt the Jets are going to do anything. But in Lions, in a dream, what would you give up to go and get that guy for this team? And what would he mean to the Lions?
Well, first and foremost, I'm not a guy that likes to toot my own horn, but toot toot, I was one of the ones first that once it was reported 2 weeks ago that Quinnen Williams was nowhere near a contract, I said, go get him. It is clear that obviously based on my experience knowing that the Lions were far apart with DeAndre Swift, they moved on from him. So once it was being reported that Quinnen Williams is not happy, this guy is the piece. Now, it's a dream scenario, guys. Obviously, I am a dreamer, and I love adding talent and love playing GM. But if there is any avenue of getting this player, this is the player that if he's brought to Detroit would make you a Super Bowl caliber team this year because he demands so much attention, double-digit sacks, and one of the biggest needs for the Lions is the interior of the defensive line. And he would immediately make Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston, Aleem McNeil unstoppable forces. So for me, they're not my draft picks. It's not my money. So I would give up 2 first-rounders and pay the man because you just don't have too many Aaron Donald-type players out there. And I know people get worried about draft capital and what that means for the future. Look, Brad Holmes was part of the Rams team that when they got to that point, they started giving away their draft picks for acquired and established talent. So whatever it takes, if it takes $25 million, obviously you're going to have to get creative and backload that contract so that the first couple years you're taking maybe $10 to $15 million cap hits for the first couple years, and then it'll balloon later while you wait for the salary cap to go up. It would take creativity. It would take a major commitment. And I just don't think that the Lions feel they're that one player away just yet. In fact, Brett Holmes said that they didn't feel going into this draft that they're one player away. But boy, would that take the Lions to a significant spot in the NFL to be able to compete with the Eagles and the 49ers. If you plug Quinnen Williams in, whatever it takes is what I would offer to go get him. I would make that move in a heartbeat and twice on Sunday. I love that player.
Amen.
I thought about that a lot today, too. And just to wrap it up with you, Doc, I appreciate you spending this time with us. I mean, I do think it has to be, not has to be, but I just think it's in the conversation that you can't give up a number 1 pick next year because the draft is here. And
Oh, yeah.
you know, I agree with you. I would do it in a second because I think if you could walk a Super Bowl trophy out on that stage, it would be a lot better than a card. But I do think that is a consideration in any trade and not trading picks away next year.
No, it's understood, and I know it's a long shot. But, Ryan, look, what's more entertaining than a football team in 2023 that's going to be on prime time, not only just winning games, but winning them handily, stopping opponents on defense. Keenan Williams in the middle, Jack Campbell behind him. Now you have an offense that's going to score an average of 28 points a game. Now you're talking some serious opportunities for the Lions. And, look, Detroit's going to show out no matter if the Lions have 8 picks or if they have 4. So I'm not worried about the entertainment value. Detroit's going to bring it for the draft based on the excitement level and for the Lions. And I'm just I'm of the opinion, and I know people look at the short term and the long term. I'm always in win now mode because you just never know what's going to happen to certain players, what's going to happen with certain attitudes. If you have an opportunity to bring pieces where you're deficient and you can bring one of the top end defensive tackles, I would do it in a heartbeat. And regardless of where the draft is being held, the Lions are really, I think, 2 more impactful pieces away from not only just talking about getting to the playoffs, but making some noise. You're that close, guys.
I'm with you.
Me too.
I'm with you. Hey, follow the Doc on Twitter at Detroit Podcast, publisher of all Lions, SI.com. Doc Maakaron, thanks so much, my friend. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Doc.
Always enjoy. It's going to be a fun year.